Hi, it's Sally Ford with McCoy Farm Gardens. Today we're going to meet with Linda Collins and Andy Jones to hear about the new Arboretum certification that McCoy has earned. This is the realization of Mrs. McCoy's vision for the property, at least part of it. But it's so much more than that. It's the story of dedication, hard work, camaraderie, and community. And as you'll see, it's also been a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy it. All right, Sally Ford here with Linda Collins and Andy Jones, and we wanted to talk about the new Arboretum certification. Linda, why don't you tell me a little bit about the background on that, and y'all can talk about the process.
Well, I think I got interested in the Arboretum at McCoy when I heard that in the 3Ds in transferring the property to the town of Walden, Martha McCoy and her family asked that it be used as an arboretum, a park, and a recreation area. And I'd been involved in one other certification at UTC, and I thought, well, that's something we need to do. You know, we could call ourselves an arboretum, but we ought to go through the quite rigorous process of state certification.
Yeah, that's awesome. We talked to Sally McCoy Garland the other day, you and Joe Davis and I think when you told her about the Arboretum certification, what did she say? That her mother...
It was maybe fabulous?
Yeah, fabulous, and that her mother would just be thrilled about it. It was something along that line.
Yeah.
So this is an achievement, not just for the property as it is today, but for the vision that Mrs. McCoy had for it.
Yeah, I see it as a legacy.
Yeah.
To her.
That's awesome.
Family.
So, both of y'all, what was the process that you went through? You say it's rigorous, and did it involve other people in the community?
Yeah, yes. In fact, there are 10 criteria the Tennessee Urban Forestry Council expects you to do, and I did refresh my memory with that last night. I looked at them, and the very first one is to have experts in trees help, and we certainly needed expertise. You know, we could tell a sassafras from an oak, I guess.
Yeah.
But we asked Hill and Paula Craddock, both of them PhDs in silviculture. He's on the faculty at UTC, and they were enormously helpful.
Yeah.
And a lot of fun to work with.
That's awesome.
And John Nessel was also one of our early inspirations, an arborist in Chattanooga here, the ornamenter, and he was one of, as I started getting involved with this idea, which I thought was great because I've always loved trees, but only knew, as Linda says, the difference between an oak and a hickory. But,
and I know the magnolia.
But being able to walk around the property with experts like John and Hill and Paula just tore the lid off the inspiration for the project to me. Not only learning what the different trees were, but how to protect them and what was needed to make them decent specimens in an arboretum.
Yeah.
To not be endangered by other trees or growth inhibited by vines. And
right. You actually had to do a lot of work. The property had sat untended for some period of time, and so things naturally grew up. Can you talk about what all you did there?
Well, initially the property was so overgrown with underbrush and vines that you couldn't really identify a lot of the trees. And as we kind of went through it, a lot of trees were discovered. And through that process, it became very apparent that the Bachmans and McCoys had a more than passing interest in trees. That there were a lot of spectacular trees unusual trees that had been planted long ago and were hidden by the vines and undergrowth. And as we cleared the area around them, some really amazing trees were found.
Yeah, that is
well, Andy is using the editorial we here. He single-handedly has cleared off
yeah,
vines, certainly as big around as my arm, maybe as big around as my leg. And,
yeah,
and in fact, when we first started this, I was concerned whether we would even pass inspection, because tree health is also one. There are especially two parts of the Tennessee Urban Forestry Council criteria involve tree health. And so I asked John Nessel early on, this was 3 years ago, to come up and take a look at the trees to see if we should even pursue this. And he did come, and that was just a wonderful day when he first got there. We asked him, told him we'd be happy to pay him, and he asked us what we were being paid, and we said, well, we're not. And he said, well, I want to do this for free too.
Oh.
I would love to help you out.
That's awesome.
He reached into the back of his pickup truck and pulled out a mallet about this long. It had a rubber tip on it. And Andy took one look at that and said to John, John, I don't think you need that. I think we can take care of Linda by ourselves.
The cruise controller. Without the hammer.
Without the mallet.
Well, and I think that set the tone for the whole time he was there. I mean, he loved that, and of course he was using that as like a stethoscope.
Yeah.
He did carry it with him around to the trees, and he would pound on the trunks to see if they were hollow or not. But he was,
And that would be an indication of health or disease.
Yes, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And Andy listened so carefully. I don't know if you remember this. You took copious notes and then wrote them up, and I've got them in my computer on file, just to know what we needed to do. So that was the beginning of our work together, and it's just been a joy.
It sounds wonderful. So, how many species do we have represented on the property here?
Well, with help, Andy and I identified 62 different species, and they all have labels on them. And then we thought, there's so many people using the trail, we should also concentrate on getting more trees on the trail labels. So we have a total of 80 labels, so we have some duplicates, especially along the trail.
Yeah. That's really, when I walk the trail, I look for the labels that you have, and they're very, very helpful. So, at the final part of the certification, what happened then? And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, actually, there's a part of this story that was really a great concern to us. The Tennessee Urban Forestry Council lost its state funding, and the Arboretum program stopped, and it stopped right after I had submitted the application.
Of course.
Last summer, and there was a question about whether this would just never come to fruition.
Right, all that work.
And at one point this spring, I just checked on the Arboretum status, and we got Arlie.
Arlie's our supervisor.
So I just checked on their website, and it said that they were going to start recertifying Arboreta, and now the Tennessee Urban Forestry Council would be under the auspices of a different department, the Department of Agriculture. So that's what sort of got things started again, and off we went to the final piece of the application, and that's the inspection. So so we needed experts to inspect, and we ended up with Hill and Paula and John Nessel, who actually had helped us at the beginning. But
off and on throughout the process, both of them, both groups had been up to help us with identification and clarification, and just really enjoy walking around looking at the different trees we found. Every time they'd come up, we'd have another half a dozen trees that had been uncovered in the woods that I couldn't specifically identify. And it was just a lot of fun.
I bet it was kind of thrilling.
Well, it was. Yeah.
It was.
Well, and they're just such delightful people. You know, we look forward to having them come.
Yeah.
And one thing that happened on one of those trips was something that Paula recognized. We were walking on the trail, on a straight stretch of the trail that is bordered on both sides by different species of pines, and she just sort of stopped in her tracks and she said, "This is a pinetum." She put a name to it, and
we'll go visit that too, because it's beautiful.
Yes, and that name has stuck.
Yeah.
Which it was not obvious at the time because it was so overgrown you couldn't actually see that the trees were planted in a row. You could see that they were planted in a row if you look at the individual trees and not.
But they were covered with
vines and all kinds of adult trees in between.
Yeah.
So a lot of clearing was necessary to bring that to definition.
Yeah.
And some of that came for several years of work of Macaulay students who had needed to do community work on Martin Luther King holiday.
What I keep hearing is this is a community effort.
Yes. Oh.
And that's what I think of when I think of McCoy, is community effort, community gathering place. It's really wonderful.
Well, the day of the inspection finally came. It was a beautiful Saturday, not that long ago, and I'll have to say Andy and I were very, very excited about that, and Hill and Paula and John came on schedule, and they did a very thorough inspection that went on for quite some time, and when they finished, they told us that we had passed inspection, and John Nessel then commented about the difference in 3 years from the first time he saw it, and how great the place looked. So many of the vines were gone. The beautiful grove that was just a jungle that is right on Anderson Pike in front of the house is all cleared off, and he just went on and on and on about it. And I said, well, you know, there's one person who did that almost single-handedly, and that's Andy. and he really, I think, just couldn't believe it. And I said, but John, you know, he does have another job.
I know.
He's an OBGYN guy.
Yeah, I'm sure he's very busy.
Yeah.
And yet he's got this devotion here.
Yes, yes. So I think we all owe Andy an enormous thank you.
Well, we do, and you too, Linda.
Well,
y'all have done an enormous job, and with great results. I'm so proud of you.
That final inspection was really a fun day too, because they divided up into 2 teams, and
yeah, you went with him, and I went with Hill and Paula.
Yeah.
Golf
Yeah,
carts.
we divided the property in half.
Yeah.
And went out looking at each tree, and we're told to be quiet.
That would be hard for me.
Well, and when it was all over, Hill and Paula had brought a sack lunch, and John Nessel's wife came and walked. It was out, in the middle of COVID. She was delighted to have a place to go, but they had to leave. So Andy said, "Well, I'm just going to go over to Pruitt's and get some food." And he took one of the golf carts and just drove it right down the highway.
Seriously?
The edge of the highway, I guess. And brought back all his wonderful sushi, and we sat on the front porch and just had a lovely lunch.
How nice.
With Gil and Paula.
Yeah.
And that was the end.
And I will say that Linda drank more than her half the six-pack.
I can tell you, I was actually higher than a kite. I mean, it took me hours, really days to kind of settle down.
And it wasn't the beer.
No, it was just the enormous relief. Yeah.
Wait a minute, was that Arizona tea?
That's so funny. Okay. So, you have the certification now, and what do you think about for the future with the Arboretum? Both of you.
Well, I think of it as an inspiration for continuing the process of adding trees that complement the mountain, the climate, and this property.
Yeah.
There's large areas of this property that are, through the last 20 or 30 years, have been allowed to grow from fields to forest, and it would be a very easy place to plant new trees.
Mm-hmm.
Because undergrowth is young and it looks like woods, but it's trees that are much younger, and it would be easy to clear places for new species who want to plant.
Yeah.
Well, and so many of these trees are quite old, and this would be a way to help
Right.
rejuvenate
Right.
the whole
And refresh the numbers.
Population we have.
That's right.
And the front drive, do you have plans for that?
Well,
Maybe not specific yet.
Well, that's been some discussion among the board. We've had a master plan. Landscape architect from Nashville has led that, and he noticed, he called it an LA of sweet gums as you come up the driveway, and he has suggested that we plant the ones that have died, and we haven't decided completely, but I think there's a consensus that would be a good thing to do.
And you've had donations towards the Arboretum, some as donations, some as memorials. So if people are interested in that, they could do that as well.
The trees that are there, the sweet gum trees that are there, are in the 100-year-old range. So how do you catch up? By replacing the three that are gone.
You just start the cycle.
Yeah, and I think we just get the biggest sweet gums we can and plant them where they approximately are balanced in the row.
Right.
And we're going to name them Charles, Mickey, and Linda.
And if you have a fourth one, it should be Andy.
I would say.
Okay. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locusts, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they saved me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. It's simple, they say, and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. By Mary Oliver.